it's safe to say that fishing games are not really everyone's cup of tea. Sure, I can understand sports titles which will appeal to both your casual armchair sports fan as well as those that actively play the sport, but fishing is something which I really only think would appeal to those that like getting out in the great outdoors and enjoying the tranquility of the sport. I couldn't be more wrong, however. It would appear that there are TV shows and channels dedicated to the sport of fishing, and although I'll never be able to get my head around the popularity of it, there were apparently enough N64 owners to warrant a number of fishing games being released on the console. The final one for me to review on this channel is Bassmasters 2000, landing on store shelves in the year 2000 after being developed by Mass Media. THQ published the title in North America to little fanfare. This was never going to be a AAA title, but there are some cool features in the game to set it apart from its competition. Featuring real 3D lakes from the Bassmasters tournament circuit, TV style presentation, colour commentary, and a whole host of difficulty options and officially licensed gear. You have the option to create your own angler and customise your loadout to ease yourself into the game. With support for 2 players and in-game fishing advice from fishing legends, the game on paper sounds like it could have been the perfect experience for those seeking some fishing action. Sadly though, the game seems to fail in the most common areas, and it falls into the common trap of the time, and that's that it can't quite decide if it wants to be an all-out simulation fishing game or a more arcade-like experience. The game modes are fairly standard. You have your casual exhibition for some quick play action, you have your tournament modes where you have to battle rules and regulations whilst trying to land a big catch, and casting mini games to help you get to grips with the basic mechanic of the game. Sadly though, none of these modes are all that fun. Now this could just be me as I'm not really a fishing fan, but when I think of turning a slow paced sport into a video game, I often think that the best way to do it is to make an arcade centric experience. Sega did an awesome job with their fishing title, and I still think today that remains as the most fun fishing game ever made. Big the Cat in Sonic Adventure really doesn't count in this instance. But like most fishing games on the N64, the game doesn't capture my interest for long enough. After casting out and reeling in nothing but water for the 10th time in a row, it just becomes an annoyance. Then when you do finally hook a fish, the reeling mechanics leave a lot to be desired. This is further enhanced by the game's weak graphics, which are terribly messy. Blocky textures, poor water physics, and some terrible fish models. Adding to this, some of the lakeside objects such as houses and trees are in 2D and have some horrific pop-up. It leaves them and the game feeling a bit too rough around the edges as a whole. Considering that a large portion of the game is spent with the underwater camera, the studio really could have improved on this. It often places itself far too close to the lure, meaning that you won't see many of the fish around until the very last moment. And even when you snag a fish, there's no effects that give a sense of a struggle taking place. Apart from the occasional lift over and above the water level, you get no sense that you're in a battle under the sea. The audio department has both its pros and cons. I personally hated the theme song, which continues to play in the menus. It's very repetitive and annoying and brings the movie Deliverance to mind. Speaking of Deliverance, I'd rather reenact many of the key scenes in that movie than play this game to completion. The game's commentary though is actually not that bad. Yes, it's massively compressed because of the voice acting, but the gravelly tones of Shaw Grigsby cut through well enough, and it's almost like your grandpa having a chat with you. There's nothing offensive or majorly annoying, but it is very limited, and so with how long the tournaments take to play, you'll likely come across the same lines of dialogue from time to time. All in all, this isn't the best fishing game on the console. Heck, it's not even a good fishing game in general. But it is dirt cheap to pick up for anyone out of their mind who may be interested in playing it, but it's really not a game I feel you should waste your time seeking out. It's dull, has very little to keep you coming back, and even the most die-hard fishing fan will already have a much better modern game to play. This game is a relic of its time, and should only be in the collection of those seeking a complete Nintendo 64 game collection. And so for today's topic of conversation, I'd love to know of any funny fishing stories you may have from back in the day. When I lived in London, I was fishing the Thames River from my house one time in the summer, and we caught this huge eel, and it wrapped itself around my dad's arm after we pulled it in. I'll never forget the frantic action of him trying to hack its head off without severing his own arm along the way as it continued to wriggle over his arm and bicep. As always though, let me know your thoughts, comments and feelings about this game in the section down below, and until next time.